Have you ever loved someone so deeply that the moment they left, it felt like the oxygen in your lungs had been stolen, like your soul collapsed inward and the world became too heavy to hold? No one tells you that heartbreak doesn't start in the chest. It starts in the soul. It starts when your attachment to someone outgrows your attachment to the one who created them. This isn't just about love. This is about the kind of love that destroys you, the kind that takes over your Zala, that clouds your dhikr, that rewrites your identity until the person you once were disappears. And it's not always haram. Sometimes it's someone you thought you'd marry. Sometimes it's the person you made dua for every night. Sometimes it's the one who gave you hope and then walked away without explanation. And you're left behind, clutching memories, like glass, bleeding through every attempt to heal. But what if I told you that their leaving was the greatest mercy Allah ever gave you? When love becomes worship, in this world, it's so easy to fall. Not just for someone's words, not just for their face, but for what they made you feel. They made you feel seen, heard, loved in a way you never felt before. So you built a shrine to that feeling. You replayed their messages. You crafted imaginary futures. You gave them the power to define your worth. And, slowly, without realizing it, you stopped asking, does Allah love me? And started obsessing over, do they still love me? That's when the danger begins. Because in Islam, we are taught, the heart was created to serve only one master. And the moment you hand your heart to someone who doesn't fear Allah, you've given them the power to crush you in ways you'll spend years trying to recover from. It's not always their fault. Sometimes it's us. We expect someone to be our peace when they were never meant to be more than a test. The aftermath, when they leave, they ghosted you. Or maybe they married someone else. Maybe they just disappeared, and now you're stuck replaying every moment, blaming yourself. Was I not enough? Was I too much? What did I do wrong? But the truth is, when someone walks away from you after you gave them your soul, it wasn't a punishment. It was a rescue because Allah saw what you didn't. The nights they didn't pray for you. The lies behind their compliments. The way your deen began to fade while their presence became your new Shibla. And so, Allah removed them, not to break you, but to bring you back to Him. Sometimes the most painful separations are actually the most divine protections. When you turn them into your Qibla, you didn't build a shrine with bricks. You built it with attention, with longing, with late-night tears and empty du'as that were more about them than about Allah. And slowly, your thoughts began to orbit around one name, not Ar-Rahman, not Al-Wadud, but theirs. You didn't realize it, but you had made them your Qibla. Every move you made was to impress them. Every prayer was tainted with, maybe Allah will bring them back. You wore what they liked. You said what they wanted to hear. You betrayed your own truth just to keep their comfort. And in all of this, where was Allah? You said you were in love. But what you were actually in was servitude. You gave someone the very seat of your heart that was only ever meant for the one who created it. And Allah, in His jealousy over your soul, tore them away, not to punish you, but to purify you, because your heart had become polluted with fantasies, illusions, and false hope. And Allah doesn't let His beloved slaves remain shackled to anything lower than Himself. The signs of worship. Disguised as love, ask yourself, did their name distract you more than Allah's names moved you? Did you beg for their replies? More than you begged in your sujud? Did your emotions rise and fall based on their mood, not your iman? These aren't signs of love. They're signs of emotional idolatry. And the worst part? You didn't even realize you were doing it. Because the shaitan doesn't tempt you with haram blatantly. He tempts you with what looks halal, but consumes your soul. Like the person who understands you so well. The one who feels like home. The one you said, but I made istikhara for them. Yes, you did. But did you surrender to Allah's answer? Or did you ignore the red flags? Because the feeling was just too strong? Istikhara is not magic. It's not a guarantee that you'll get what you want. It's a protection against what you don't see. And sometimes what you don't see is that the person you're begging for was never meant to be yours. They were sent to wake you up, to expose your dependency, to remind you were made for submission, not obsession. How you rewrite reality for them, you start excusing their mistakes. You downplay your values. You forget your purpose, because now your entire life is filtered through one lens. How can I keep them? That's not love. That's self-erasure. And one day you wake up and realize that you don't even recognize yourself anymore. Your confidence, gone. Your worship, mechanical. Your joy, dependent on their presence. That's what happens when the heart forgets who owns it. But Allah never forgets. And He will pull you back, even if it feels like tearing, because He will not let your soul be owned by anyone but Himself. When you beg Allah to bring them back, you cried. You begged. You made dua like never before. You raised your hands after every salah, desperate, shaking, telling Allah, please, bring them back to me. You offered tahajjud. You gave charity. You even promised to be better. But nothing changed. No message came, no apology, no return, just silence. And in that silence you asked, why, Ya Allah? I did everything. Why won't you give me this? But maybe, just maybe, Allah's silence was the answer. When the pain is protection, you thought you were being rejected, but you were being redirected. You thought your heart was being ignored, but it was being rescued from the fire, because had they come back, you would have gone further into attachment, further into compromise, further from your Lord. Allah doesn't always remove something when you're strong. Sometimes He removes it so that you become strong. You're not being punished. You're being purified. You're not being broken. You're being rebuilt. On stronger ground, the Quran says, it may be that you dislike a thing which is good for you. 2:16. You didn't lose them. You were saved from who they would have become if Allah had let you continue. Sometimes unanswered du'as are the most merciful ones. Tawheed means trusting His no. It's easy to trust Allah when He says yes, when He gives you what you want. But the real test of Tawheed is when He says no, and you still trust Him, because that's when your worship becomes pure, not transactional, not dependent on outcomes, but rooted in submission. You stop saying, why didn't you give me what I loved? And start saying, Ya Allah, thank you for saving me from what I didn't see. That's where peace lives, not in getting what you want, but in surrendering to the one who knows what you need, even when it hurts. But what if they come back? They might. Maybe a month later, maybe a year, maybe just when you're starting to heal, and suddenly it all comes rushing back. The hope, the fantasy, the what-ifs. But here's the test. Do you run to them, or to the one who pulled you away from them? Because not every return is a blessing. Some are traps sent by Shaitan to reopen what Allah already healed. That's why healing isn't just emotional, it's spiritual clarity. You don't just recover from a person, you reclaim your soul from whatever owned it before. When you don't recognize yourself anymore, you look in the mirror and you don't see the same person. Your eyes feel hollow. Your smile, fake. Even your voice sounds like it belongs to someone else. Because when they left, they didn't just walk away with your love. They walked away with your sense of self. You don't know what to wear anymore, what to say, what you believe. You question your worth in every room you enter, and worst of all, you begin to think, maybe I was only valuable because they loved me. That is the lie of the nafs, because your worth never came from their attention, never came from their compliments. Your worth was written in the heavens before you were even born. Indeed, we have certainly honored the children of Adam. 1770, you were honored by Allah, not by their presence, not by their approval, and definitely not by their return. What dies after heartbreak is ego, not you. Sometimes it feels like something inside you died, and that's true. But what died wasn't your light, wasn't your soul. What died was your ego's version of love, the version that wanted to be chosen, the version that lived to be validated. And when Allah let that illusion shatter, it hurt. But it made space. Space for who you were always meant to be, a soul that only bows to Him. Because before you were the one who loved them, you were the slave of Ar-Rahman. Before you cried for them, you were written to prostrate to the most merciful. Heartbreak isn't the death of you, it's the death of the false self that needed someone else to feel whole. And what rises from that death is someone unstoppable. Because their anchor is Allah, not people. Rebuilding with Allah brick by brick, you won't feel better overnight, and that's okay. Healing isn't a sprint. It's a prayer repeated in the dark until it slowly brings you back to light. Start small. Make wudu when you feel worthless. Sit in sujud, even when your chest is heavy. Recite Quran, even if your hands tremble. Say Ya Allah even when you don't know what else to say, because every step you take toward Him, He rushes back to you. Whoever comes to me walking, I come to him running. Hadith Qudsi. You thought you lost love, but you're about to find something greater, a love that doesn't leave, that doesn't ghost, that doesn't confuse or manipulate, a love that purifies, a love that heals, a love that leads you back to yourself, through Him. When you realize this was written, at first you resist it. No, this can't be Allah's will. How can a love so deep end this painfully? You tell yourself it was a mistake, that if you had just said the right thing, prayed harder, loved better, they would have stayed. But slowly, through the silence, through the heartbreak, through the echoes of unanswered prayers, you begin to see it. This wasn't random. This was qadr, because if they were written for you, nothing in the universe could have pulled them away. And if they weren't, no amount of begging could have kept them. The Prophet said, what hit you was never meant to miss you, and what missed you was never meant to hit you. Tirmidhi. You weren't being rejected, you were being realigned. Their departure was part of your du'as. Remember when you asked Allah, Ya Allah, protect me from anything that harms my deen, or Ya Allah, keep me close to you no matter what. And then they left. It didn't feel like protection, it felt like abandonment. But sometimes Allah answers your dua by removing what you couldn't remove yourself. You didn't see how you were slipping. You didn't see how their love was replacing your dhikr. You didn't see how you were slowly moving away from your purpose, your values, your soul. But Allah did. And so He pulled you back, even if it meant tearing you away from what you thought you needed. That's not cruelty, that's divine love. Imagine a jigsaw puzzle. You're holding a piece that looks perfect, beautiful. It fits your hand. It even connects to your current edges. But Allah sees the full picture, and He knows that piece would have ruined the final image. So He removes it, and you cry, because you thought it was the one. But later, sometimes years later, you see it. You see why that piece was never yours, and why its absence made space for something that finally fits. With peace, with purpose, with purity. That's qadr, and your job was never to control it. Your job was to trust that even the most painful chapters are authored by the most merciful. When you feel forgotten, remember who never leaves. They left. They moved on. They didn't even check in. They started over while you were still bleeding. And in that loneliness, you started to feel forgotten, but the reality is you were never alone. Every tear that hit your pillow was seen. Every trembling Ya Allah was recorded. Every silent scream your heart released was carried straight to the heavens. You were never forgotten. You were just being recentered, back to the one who never left. You are not someone's ex. You are not someone's almost. You are not defined by their love or their rejection. You are a slave of the Most High, a soul chosen by Allah. To go through this, not to be humiliated, but to be purified. You didn't lose them. You returned to yourself. You returned to Allah. And in that return, you gained a kind of love that never ghosts, never manipulates, never asks you to shrink. You gained the only love that expands your heart and anchors it in eternity. Say it out loud. Say it for yourself. Say it for your future. Ya Allah, break me again if you must, but never let me be owned by anyone but you. And to those who watched you suffer, who thought your silence meant defeat, let your healing be the loudest reply. Because you were never weak. You were simply being restructured by the one who writes all stories. And this story ends in sujud. If this message touched your soul, type Ameen in the comments. Let the angels record your surrender. Let your next chapter begin with, "Do us and don't keep this to yourself. Share it." Because someone out there is crying for a closure that only this message can give. Until next time, protect your heart, center your soul, and never forget, Allah breaks you only to rebuild you better. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.